Sarah Parshall Perry is the legal expert at Heritage Foundation, or a legal expert. I'm sorry for saying you're the only one. She's here now for more. Sarah, is there a need for a parent's Bill of Rights like the House Republicans are trying to pass, given what we've seen happening in school districts around the country concerning certain books and curricula?
Yeah, absolutely. And particularly so, especially so, where it intersects with notions of federal authority already in place. We know, for example, that the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights specifically enforces the civil rights that we've seen implicated at the local level. I give you, for example, race discrimination, which is a statute enforced by the U.S. Department of Education, and their elimination of that as part of their law enforcement responsibilities. Well, what we've actually seen in the past 2 years or so is the perpetuation of race discrimination. Title IX is another perfect example. Sex has always meant biological distinctions between male and female, but now we see with this administration, it's been expanded to include gender identity. Where those federal laws are implicated, federal privacy laws, for example, or the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, those need desperate updating. We've also seen these efforts at the state level, and what we want to do is strike a good balance between the granular grassroots level closest to the kids standpoint, where we see in, for example, 11 states that have increased transparency efforts, and what we can allow Congress to do through the federal legislative mechanism to make sure that the federal rights that have been on the books for the better part of 5 centuries stay that way, or 5 decades stay that way.
Sarah, we just saw Delegate Stacey Plaskett speaking out against this measure for parents. She went on to call it polarizing. What do you make of that argument against the Parents' Bill of Rights?
Well, I think it's a perfect indicia of the fact that the parents have found their voices and that COVID has given us a new perspective on exactly what our students, what our children are learning at the grassroots level, what they're being taught. And many of those concepts are not only divisive, we're seeing books now included in school libraries that are outright pornographic in violation of longstanding obscenity law. So there is good reason to be concerned. To call something as basic as a parent's Bill of Rights polarizing, I think indicates exactly how worried the Democrats are at the federal level of parents continuing to be rightly incensed about what's happening in American education.
Sarah, we only have a few seconds left, but from your perspective, what are the biggest issues facing the American education system? I know we've talked about policy, curriculum, but there's also teacher shortage.
Well, I would say teacher shortage has always been an issue, but what we've seen, unfortunately, is that influence of the large teachers' unions that have exacted that unseen hand to be able to force teachers into strike situations where they're not exactly getting the benefits that they want. And the teachers' unions have been pushing through curricula that has also been far left in its notions. So not just an absence of transparency, not just a misapplication of federal civil rights law, but a failure of teachers to stick only to the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic.
All right, Sarah Parshall Perry with the Heritage Foundation. We're out of time, but thank you so much for coming on tonight.